Hello and welcome to the Alpha Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to be joined by both Dion McCormick, our Alpha expert, as well as Sarah Mitchell, our Director of Customer Success. Sarah's got a couple things she's going to go over at the beginning, and then we're going to hand it over to Dion. But throughout the entire presentation, we are here to take your questions, and you can type those questions into the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started today with Sarah. Hello, Sarah, you there?
I am. Can you hear me all right?
Excellent. I can hear you and I can see your screen.
Yes, amazing.
Splash.
Perfect.
Yes.
Splash screen. I'm sorry, I just made a joke and I thought it was funny. Anyway, welcome. I just wanted to briefly do some housekeeping. Our webinar schedule, I know last week we said we were going to do searching and sorting this week, but we have swapped this week's session with Dion's session, which was going to be next week. So Dion's actually going to be talking about custom controls today, which you guys should all be excited for. Yep, definitely. And then, so we'll do searching and sorting and configuring controls next. And then the 6th will be a vote, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. And then July 13th, I don't think this is ambitious. We are like on the cusp of putting out new release Alpha Anywhere. So on the 13th, we will be talking about new features in that release, regardless of whether or not it has been shipped. If it hasn't gone out yet, then it'll be like, these are the features in the pre-release. But that's what we're going to be talking about on the 13th. But back to the idea of a vote of topics, there is now a poll on the forum. I'm going to grab that direct link for you to that post on the forum. Put that in the chat. Thank you to the person who messaged me yesterday who said I put it in announcements and no one can vote in announcements because no one can vote in announcements. So that's actually in the general area if you are going up there and trying to find it. But you need an account on the forum to vote, but there are a handful of topics there that people expressed interest in. If you have an idea that you want to see presented or something to talk about and you don't see it listed, by all means, please put it in the comments. This isn't going to be something where we just pick one of these and never talk about the others. We're going to pull from you, and this will inform not only that webinar on the 6th, but future webinars after that. And then, as always, as a reminder, Alpha DevCon 2022 is just around the corner. If you received an email about it, we did send out a mailing recently. Tickets are $3.99 now. Get your tickets now because at the end of the month, they are going to go up in price. I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that if you haven't done that yet. And then, as always, if you have questions, if you're watching this on YouTube and want to ask a question but couldn't attend live, send that question to guides@alphasoftware.com. So now, Dion, if you're ready, I'm going to pass the torch.
Yes, I am.
All right.
Dun, 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 dun.
You can see your screen.
Hopefully that's coming through. Yes, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you,
Thanks, Sarah.
Dave and Sarah. Always enjoy hanging out with you cats and going over some interesting stuff. We've touched upon our subject today, but we're going to kind of come back to it because I think it's even more relevant today and in terms of custom controls, a feature that was added by the team, and I use it myself. I've got some real world examples, and it's really, really powerful. Really can have a big impact on your development productivity and capabilities and how you work with your clients from there. As mentioned, make sure to get in there. DevCon, we got a lot of really great stuff in the hopper, along with the new features that are coming out soon. But beyond that, the roadmap and the other pieces, which I really, really enjoy. So I encourage, if you haven't already signed up, please do. And as always, we'll have super high quality content and super high quality videos. So if you can't see everything real time, you'll be able to check that out and do that from there. Quick little update. I don't know if everybody heard about it, but Internet Explorer has officially retired. So 27 years they came out after Netscape dropped it. So I'm sure a lot of people have already heard of it, but pretty amazing run, 27 years for a piece of software. And love it and hate it had a huge impact on the business and on the, basically got them sued, by the way, but it was an amazing thing. But I'm really kind of happy it's gone, just because the Edge browser is so much better at conforming to modern standards, has a lot better security issues, but more importantly, it just makes it kind of along the line with Chrome and other things. So it reduces a lot of the issues of, oh, I've got to do this special thing to handle it. Internet Explorer, that's kind of a thing of the past to a large degree. So awesome, awesome, awesome. By the way, that DevCon, I'm going to put that in here, is in the chat window here. So off to the races there. So today, what I'd like to talk about is UX custom controls. And we're going to actually do a demonstration where we're going to walk through the creation of a custom control and use of it. But also, I'm going to kind of do a double whammy. I get a lot of questions around Bootstrap, so I kind of want to show an example of how I'm using a combination of Bootstrap and custom controls to provide a little bit more interesting user interface possible that you can use within the tool. And again, what I'm showing here can be done with the basic alpha controls and other functionality there, but it's just, I think, something that you may find very, very interesting. So with that in mind, what I'm going to talk about is that if you haven't experimented with it, it's really worthwhile. It is a powerful feature of the alpha platform that does some really neat things. One, it builds leverage for you, meaning that you have reuse. So the idea of do it once and then use it over and over and again. Every time you use it, you're actually gaining in terms of productivity and stability and other pieces there. And it really is powerful, especially if you have a support, like a team kind of environment. Because, you know, one of the challenges with alpha sometimes is it's kind of monolithic, really only one person can work on it at a time. You know, there are ways to manage that with Git, et cetera, but because of the historical structure of it, it tends to be kind of monolithic in size. And you can break them into smaller chunks, but the UX custom component is ideal for team development because you can have an individual basically create a custom component and provide it to the team, and then they can instantiate and put that onto their work in progress, and they get that leverage of one person creating something that the other people can. And this is just not limited to an internal team. This is also available to the community. So if you create a really cool custom control, you can kind of package it up and provide it to people, and it's really, really neat from there. So the key thing I wanted to kind of take a step up is, you know, one of the key things you hear in the industry is the benefits of code reuse, i.e., you promote code reuse for your individual work and for your team's work, then you can really gain a lot of benefits. And here are the key 5 benefits you will gain by going down this road and really embracing it. One is faster development periods, i.e., you're not having to code everything from scratch. You can start now pulling these components off the shelf and combine them and put them together and get a much faster delivery time frame for your client and for your projects. Along with that, you're going to reduce your development spending, meaning that if you're reusing these components, then the benefit of that is that you don't have to recreate the wheel every time. You get a big chunk of functionality put into your system with very little effort, and therefore you're not spending time coding up parts of your system. So you can break it into pieces and then reuse those pieces over and over again. Another key thing is development risk. Obviously, when everybody develops, nobody ever creates. That is a myth. I have never, ever in my life created a bug. But sometimes the user doesn't know what they're doing and they report it as a bug. So the bottom line is once you have it working perfectly, and all kidding aside, you kind of sort of anneal and you hammer out any issues you have on it. Well, then that piece of code is going to work and rework and work and work and work, and you're not going to have to worry about debugging it. So you're lowering your development risk because you're using pre-made components that are available within it. The other is standards, i.e. that things have a standard look and feel and standard coding structure, really handy there, and really great product potential. I mean, when you create these custom controls and create little bigger ones, that gives you a competitive advantage because you can go out to a client, quickly put together something using your custom controls, and also show how powerful and how quick you can do things. It takes low code to the next level in terms of your ability to business and please your customers and have all that. I got it from this specific website here, so it has a lot more thoughts on that. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into the message area. So go check that out if you get bored and have a little time there. So I want to first talk about a real world example, and I really can't show it because it's kind of an internal tool, but I can kind of talk to it. So I've been working and mentoring with a really great company that uses Alpha as their core platform. And one of their key things that they needed was data visualization. And so they looked, and we have our charts and the built in there, but there was an issue of really, they wanted something that was a little bit more fancy. And so we came across and worked with Zing chart, which I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's a really nice set of JavaScript. And I'm putting it here. There we go. A really set of nice, beautiful, powerful kind of charts, and you can mix and match and create very, very nice reason. And the styling is very, very nice. It's not too, there is a cost. It's not too expensive. It's pretty reasonable, but it really looks very, very nice. So we talked about it and we embraced it. And we said, well, that's great, but it's JavaScript, and you coded this thing via JavaScript. And that was a downside because, again, if you're doing alpha, you don't want to code. You want to spend your time generating results. So what we ended up doing was basically taking Zing charts and wrapping that JavaScript into custom controls. And what's nice about that is then we could take the key sort of settings, the data and everything, expose them as settings in it, and you'll see that in our demonstration today. And now we basically have a drag and drop charting program where you can drag a custom control onto a UX, set some parameters, and boom, you now have a nice looking chart. And a couple of the benefits, if we go back to it, is there is a standards, meaning that the charts are structured so they look and fit in. So if you put 3 of them on the page, they don't look weird because we've aligned sort of the branding and the capabilities in the color system, etc. So now each developer doesn't have to do that. And what's nice is we did it once, and now whenever they create a new UX, then they need a couple charts on it. It's a drag and drop kind of process versus having to actually go in and say, okay, I've got to open up, edit some JavaScript files and do things like that. And so that was a real world example. And I'll kind of show you how we approach that. But I wanted to show you that this is actually being used in production out in the world with very good success, primarily because it works so well with the custom control / view box, because basically we took the JavaScript, we took the view box, we put it all inside this custom control and then saved it, and boom, now you could reuse it over and over and over again. Very, very cool stuff in there. So what I want to show you how I can do something similar, and what I'm going to use in this situation is I'm not going to use the Zing charts. I'm going to be using Bootstrap because I get a lot of questions about Bootstrap. So let me jump over onto here, and I'm going to go to the Boot. So what Bootstrap is basically, and I'm preaching to the choir, I think everybody knows, is that it was created, I believe, by, was it Facebook, or I think it was Twitter actually created it. They wanted a preset set of CSS that you could quickly use without having to spend a ton of time custom coding CSS and other pieces. So they became, think of it as almost a framework for CSS. And it has some really nice features in terms of you can create really nice looking interfaces from that standpoint. The trick is you have to include it, and then it's got a certain nomenclature, etc. I'm on the actual Bootstrap, and actually let me copy that and put that in. Kind of killing you guys with chatting, but you can use that later. But here's some examples. I'm going to go down, and I will show you this as we go through it, is that, they have some nice features, like you can create these nice looking range controls, and they're all preset, ready to go in there. Ooh, that's range. I wanted to actually, which one did I want here? I'm sorry. Let me go back up. Let's see. Let's go down here. So you can create nice looking buttons, with colors and styling. And as you can see, once you've added the CSS, you're just using specific classes kind of scenario here. And again, you don't need to use custom controls for this. This is a nice way to just wrap stuff and make your life easier. So that's what I want to show you. But you can absolutely take Bootstrap styling and style your right out of the gate UX using this capability. But a couple other things that are nice is things like, where's some badges where you can put in, scroll down here, like a little 4 in there, etc. It's got a nice little function. You can also do things which I kind of cool, and we'll actually experiment with that today, is you can actually do things like progress bars. And they have some nice looking progress bars. And so a combination of controls that already exist in alpha, but hey, maybe there's some controls you want that are there, nice looking, pretty, etc., and fairly easy to do these things. So what I'm going to do is, going back to it, I'm going to actually take advantage of Bootstrap, And let's see, oh, it's not buttons, it's badges. And I'm going to create a custom control that basically allows me to add a button with a badge right on the screen and call it a day. And we're going to go through that process right now. So buckle up. If you have any questions, please put them into the question Q&A section, and our fine friends will be monitoring that and be able to do it. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to start from scratch. I've actually created this, but I want to go ahead and start from scratch. Now, here's when you're building a custom control, it's built around the view box control. So the view box is sort of, think of it as your framework to create this. And you'll have two phases. You'll basically create it using a view box, and then you'll save that as a custom control and then be able to reuse that on another one. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to start out by just creating a UX control because view boxes live within UXs. Okay, not going to add any fancy stuff, panel cards. It doesn't. Think of this UX as my development. So I'm going to actually go ahead and add on here a view box onto here. Okay, and we'll call this VB badge fun. And it doesn't matter what you name that. You can just name it anything you want. But this is going to be where we're going to put our view box on there. And this UX is, think of it as my like development scratch pad where I can do my development. And when you're doing custom controls, you'll save this, because if you ever need to make a change, you can reopen this, modify this, and then resave it as a custom control, which you'll see the process we go from there. So first step is to create your view box that you're going to actually create it. Now, the next step, and this is super duper important, is I'm going to go into my view box here. And remember, what's going to get saved is not the whole UX when we're ready. Let me get out of that. We're not going to save the whole UX. We're going to just save what this view box is. So what's kind of nice is you'll feel more, you could put multiple view boxes on here for your different custom controls where you're doing your development work. And again, you can save them individually as it goes. So usually, like when we were doing charting, we would have one UX and then have all the different chart types in their own view box, and then we could save them, and then it was easy to edit from there. So I'm going to go in here to view box, and I'm going to do something very important. When you're starting to do a custom control, you start with a blank view box, but you have to instantiate what's called a template for that view box, because it kind of sets things up for you. It makes life a lot easier. Basically, you just go open your view box, go down here and look for the More button. Then you say, you go here to load sample view box, not that. We'll do that in a few minutes. And then you can see there's a whole bunch of them here, which is really nice because it allows you to kind of see some examples of how to put together view boxes. But I'm coming down here and I'm going to do a template for user-defined custom UX control. And that has already done a few things. One is that it set up some static data. It also went in here and set up a layout, and then it came in here, added a little CSS, then it added this little JavaScript. So think of this as kind of your like 101 view box. And actually, you could save this and then save it as a custom control, and this works right out of the gate. It's really nice, and it's great for it. And I'm not going to go through that because there's a great video that has already been put together that walks you through this here, but I want to kind of show you. So step one is add your view box, and then step two, which is super important, is load your sample view box with template for user-defined control. And so now I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I'm going to go ahead and save this and I call it C custom control dev badge fun. And you can call it anything you want, but this kind of tells me, oh, this is when I do development of it there. Okay, so I've done that there. Now, as I mentioned on this custom control is going to use Bootstrap. So for order for me to do that, I need to let Alpha know how to kind of go find the Bootstrap stuff. Now, you have two options. Bootstrap is free. It's an open source. You can download the Bootstrap CSS files, add them to your project, and then put them on your, then add that right in here, and then it will just work. But I tend to use something pretty simple, which is we go back to to custom R2 here. We go back to docs. We go to here. They have, which is really nice, basically a CDN where I don't actually have to do it. I can actually just put it on my UX in my header, and then that will allow me to see the JavaScript, or excuse me, to access it. So I'm just going to copy this information here. And again, this is just a set of little script commands that say, hey, go out on the internet, grab this and bring it down. Now, obviously, you have to decide if that's good for you. I mean, the nice thing is they host it. You don't have to worry about it. It's all up to date, etc. But you may want, if you have like a situation where it all has to be on your own server, you will probably download these files and then host them locally. But I'm going to grab that. I'm going to go back in here. Now, for this UX to work, I need to go to the properties. And again, this is kind of, if you know, this is not just related to custom control. If you just want to put some, Bootstrap capabilities, you can just go to properties, go to the header, and that's the head section tags here. And I just paste that there. So all this does is basically says, when you load this UX, you run out, you go grab this JavaScript and this, oh, that's Popper. Did I pick up the right thing? I'm sorry, let me go back here. I want the CSS is what I care about. That's including Popper. I want the CDN links. Where are those? Ah, here they are. Here's the CDN links that I need to do. So this is what I need to make sure that, as you notice, if I go ahead and grab that, and I go to here, I go into my head section tags, and I paste it. So what it's going to do is it's going to, when it loads up this UX, it goes and grabs this CSS and makes it available. And then therefore, then Alpha combines that with what I've asked it to do to do it. So again, this is whether you're using custom controls or not. If you're going to use Bootstrap, you either need to download, add it, and include the links to that CSS, or in your head section tabs, put in here and put that from there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then now what I want to do is, now that I've got, and in fact, I can run this, you're not going to see any custom, you're going to see the custom control render. You notice it does this rendering here, and then, oh, that header, what's going on here? Oh, egads. Excuse me, I don't put in that actually there. Let me go. I'm Rusty, I just did this yesterday, so I'm sorry, everybody. What you need to do is need to put it into, let's see. There we go. There we go. This is what I need that. That's what I need to be in the header. And if you're curious, you see and learn more about CDN links, you can click here and it tells you exactly how those pieces do. So actually, you know what? I'm going to cheat. I just want to make sure I have the really, I'm going to go where I did it yesterday. Always good. And this is what I had right here. So you can see what I'm actually downloading here, and I'll put it over here. Basically, when this loads, it says, oh, here's a link, go get this, in this case, the CSS. And also there's this JavaScript that's used for some of the controls. Not all of them require it, but some of the controls require them. So you can use that from there. But just whatever UX you're going to use Bootstrap on, make sure you have this in the head section and you're good to go. So now this will look a little nicer, is that basically all you're going to see in here is, oh, why is that doing that? Let's see, oh, do I have it? Go into the head section tags. Did I paste it somewhere? Must have pasted it somewhere. Okay, anyway, so it basically runs from there. Okay, so step one is we've created our out-of-the-box standard custom control. Step two is I had to include that. So let's go ahead and go back in here and explain a little bit about how this custom control works. So first and foremost in here, normally when you're doing a view box, you put your HTML here, your CSS here, and then you're good to go. And then you could add JavaScript if you see. But view boxes work a little differently. Because they're dynamic in nature, we actually go to JavaScript and you'll see that there's a function called myControl. And this function basically spits out a bit of, in this case, it spits out some HTML to display. So the only tricky part you have to kind of get your head around is that you are dynamically creating the HTML that's going to be shown in this view box. You don't actually just paste it in here, you put it in here. Now you could put other things in here, there's no reason not, but to make them dynamic, they need to come out of the JavaScript area. So I'm going to show you something really simple, is I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go down to my buttons. Just go down here. I'm sorry, badge section. Scroll down here, and you can see here is what we just need. We just need, this is how to spit out this button. And this is just JavaScript, or I'm sorry, HTML. It says button of type button. Here's the class, that's what comes from CSS, and then the other information here. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy that. I'm gonna go back into here, and instead of putting out what they had there, I'm gonna copy this, and I'm just gonna paste that in there. Now, an issue is, you notice they have to get rid of the carriage returns. Okay, so let me expand this, see if I can expand this so you can see it all from there. There you go. So when this JavaScript runs, it basically says, oh, okay, please throw out this HTML. And then what happens is over here in your layout, it puts that information right here. So my first step when I do a custom control is I don't try and get fancy. I figure out what HTML do I want to come out. I just spit it out raw, and then we check it to make sure it works okay. So let's go ahead and save this. Now, a tricky part is for the live preview to work. If I do working preview, you're going to see it's going to spit out the button here. I don't know why that's on there. Must have been something. I want to hold on here. Let's see, did I put it in here somewhere? Yeah, it's just, it's annoying to me. So basically, yeah, okay. So I'm just maybe stuck in there. So if you notice, if I go into working preview, it is spitting out my button with the badge. Check that out, but it's not styled. So what I'm gonna do is go to live preview, because then that will load up the Bootstrap. Have to be running. And voila, we have our view box. Now you notice that it has like a little title above it, but you got notifications. It's got all the nice hover over capabilities. So if I want to change the, actually that's good. Let's go back into here. So let's say I wanted that to present another way. And I wanted to make it like, 7. I just change the HTML that's going to spit out, save it, and do a live preview. And you'll see now it spits out a 7. Now here's the deal. I could stop there. If I wanted a button on every one of my things that said, button in 7, I could save this custom control and put it onto another UX, and it would render exactly what you see there. But that's kind of boring. That's not very interesting because, hey, I want to be able to set the notifications on it. So now what I want to do, and so for instance, just to give you an idea of how that's used in terms of Zing charts, is we put things like the height and width of the chart, the color scheme, other little parameters. So we basically took the parameters that fed the chart and wrapped them in a view box with those parameters. So I want to do something similar where when I run this, I don't want that number to be fixed, meaning I don't always be 7. I want to be able to pass into this custom control a number. So I'm going to go in there, and this is how we do it. So you notice this is kind of basically a hard-coded, we're spitting out this data. And you'll notice up here, there's this code. And I'm going to come back to this moment in a moment, but I'm going to go back to my data source and I'm going to look at my static JSON. Now, remember when I created this view box, the system automatically kind of created all these parameters for me. So I'm going to go in here and you're going to see that there's a little bit of JSON, and here are the different data elements in that JSON. And you remember when I ran it just out of the box, that colored put what icon and things like that. So this kind of is pre-made for that initial demo, but all I really want is badge number. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm saying for this view box or custom control when it's done, I want to be able to have a badge number. I'm going to go ahead and default that to 3. So this is now the way I add parameters to my custom control. And I could have as many as I want in here. I could have a whole bunch of other data to alter how my custom control works. So again, what I'm doing here is by modifying the static JSON in my view box, I'm now saying, hey, I'm making a parameter for my item, for my custom control. Okay, so now that I have that parameter in my JavaScript, you can see here there's a little bit of information. So this is, don't have to worry about it because you're not going to change this. But basically what this JavaScript does is say, hey, go find out what the badge number is and are all the parameters. And I'm going to go ahead and stick that into this V variable. So basically it says, go grab all the parameters and their data and put them in here. Now I'm going to get rid of this here. And I can say badge number is equal to V dot, and then the name of that parameter. So once you've set up your, now let me make sure it's spelled correctly. So once you've set up your JSON, so like let's go ahead and just for giggles, I'm going to say message or text. Let me go, we'll come back and adjust that in a minute. Let's say I want my text and I want to say a notification. Okay, so now I have two parameters in there, and therefore the custom control parameters. And now I can go into, I'm sorry, my JavaScript right here, and I can say, let's say text is equal to V dot notification. What did I call that? I forget that. I can go right here, notification dot text. I'm sorry, dot text. Okay, so again, don't worry about this. This basically, when this runs, it goes and says, oh, what fields are their values? Then it loads it up in this V, and then all I have to do is address that V. Now, I didn't have to create these. I could actually go in here. So now what I'm going to do is the following, is I'm going to say, you know what? Right, you'll notice right here, it's hard coded to a 7, but I want that to be dynamic. I want that to be one of my parameters. So what I'm going to do is this, is I'm going to alter this statement here, much like we do in XSpace. I'm going to end it. I'm going to say plus badge number plus, and then a single quote. So this is just like concatenating in XBasic. I'm taking this text, I'm concatenating it with that badge number, and then I am concatenate the bottom part. So now what happens is when this runs, it's going to basically get to this point, it's going to grab those data values, and then it's going to build up the HTML to come out. So again, remember, let's go back in and say what the field value is, and I'm defaulted to 3. So now I'm going to click OK. And if I've done things correctly, I'll go to my badge, and you're going to see it's going to say notifications. Oh, undefined. I have to get that right. So I did something wrong. Let me go in here. Badge number. Let's go look at my JavaScript. Badge number. And in fact, you know what? I usually don't like doing that. I just kind of copy this. It's kind of redundant. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to put it right here. You may want to do that for other reasons, but I'm just going to get rid of it to make life simpler. So all we're doing is saying, hey, go load those parameters, and when you build this string up, grab this here. So let's go ahead and do a live preview. See what happens. I could be doing fast preview by the now, but just double 4.7. So notice now it's 3 instead of 7. And if I go in here and I go to the data source, and let's make that 9. And these are the defaulted data when you're doing your development testing. You can see, and you can go into, oops, I want to go in live preview because I want it looking nice. You could do it in working preview, but you wouldn't see the nice styling. Okay. So you can see now it says 9. Okay, now I want to do one more thing. I really want this to be parameter independent. So I'm going to go to JavaScript here. And remember, we have two parameters that are in here. The first parameter is badge number. The next one is the text. So what I'm going to actually do is go into my JavaScript, and here is my hard-coded text. I'm going to do the same thing I did. I'm going to go plus v.text plus, okay. So now when it builds it up, it's going to, instead of putting in that hard-coded text, it's going to ask my parameter and put it into this string. So this is really as complicated as it gets. I mean, for straightforward, you just have a set of HTML and you do the merge and you're replacing things dynamically with the data that's passed in and you're good to go. Now, this is straight HTML, but there's many more capabilities you have. But let's go ahead and test this real quick. So let's go ahead and give a preview of this. And so I can test this and go, oh, notice my text there now is notification exclamation point, because it's building this up from here. Now I could set, for instance, the width of this button and everything. I could add all those parameters so I could completely make this sort of parameterized. Okay, I've got my view badge working correctly. I'm very happy about it. It's working really good. So now I'm ready to turn it into a custom control because I want to be able to give it to my friend and say, hey, here's your custom control. Here, you just have to set the parameter for the text in the badge and it shows up. So we go through the following steps. We reopen our development UX here, there. Then you go down here to more and you say save as custom UX control. So this is kind of a process you'll get to. So you kind of build it, get it working, it's perfect. Everything's looking good. You're ready to sort of wrap it up or encapsulate it. So I say save as custom control. And you'll see it goes, oh, I notice, sir, that you have two parameters. And here are the current defaults. Would you like to change the default? So yeah, I would like the default just to be not a notification and 4. That means when I drop that custom control, it's going to default to these parameters. And this is kind of important because you may have structured and wanted all your charts to be 200 by 300 or certain things. So it allows you to kind of set those default values. Now you don't have to enforce the user when they use the custom control, but I'm going to use that from here. So I'm going to click OK. So now it's asking, it's got a dialog box that goes, what do we want to call this? And I'm going to call this badge fun. That's the name of my UX custom control. So when I go to add it to my UX when I'm ready to use it, that's what's going to show up under the alpha controls. Now it also allows you to add an icon, which please do. So you can go in here. Now the important thing is you have to use the built-in image. It doesn't accept SVGs. You have to build. And I think that's because of the way the development environment. So now I'm going to just go select one, and I'm just going to go ahead and click. Let's click this one. Let's see, there's some. You can see there's a whole bunch of nice ones in here. Let's see something cool. Oh, you know what? Let's. There we go, right there. Do CSS. CSS. Okay. So that's going to be the little icon that shows for that. And that's pretty handy from that standpoint. And then you notice down here, here are your properties. Now, this is a really, really cool feature of the custom control. I don't have to go in and do a bunch of like special coding to get the user interface. Basically, when I drop this in, it automatically gives me this property panel based on the properties that I'm setting. So Alpha takes care of all that, saying when you put the custom control, and you'll see in a moment, it actually asks you for these properties, you type it in, and it takes care of that. You just need to tell it what properties do you want to expose, and then you're good to go from there. And it has actually a whole bunch of information here about syntax. You can put things like style, like if you have a color picker, you can do. I mean, there's really ways you can make that property pane super easy for the person who's going to consume your custom control. Okay, so I've named it, I've given it an icon, I'm keeping the parameters I've set, and I'm going to click OK. And the control has been saved. Voila, we're there. So let's go use my control now. So again, this has all been the development and testing phase. I'm now ready to use that on my UX. So I'm going to create a new UX. Okay, just blank one here. And you know what, to make this interesting, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put in a panel car. I'll just leave it alone. We'll just add it here. Okay, so I want to add my custom control. Well, I just go add control. And I look for my control. Ah, there it is. That was my previous one, badge fun. So you can see that's the little icon I selected, and that's the name of it here. So you probably want to be a little more like notification badge with count or something like that. But let's go ahead and put that in there. And then it's just, then everything else works like Alpha does. It says, oh, okay, what's the name of it? Where do I want to put it? Do I want a label? Let's say we don't want a label on here, and click OK. So now I'll notice that now on my screen, I have my new custom control. That's the name of the specific instance. And it actually even uses my little icon there. Now, as I mentioned before, I want to set my properties so when I run this. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my control properties, and voila, there are my properties, including my base one. So I'm going to change this to 8, and I'm going to call this to webinar. Okay. So now I've got my properties. If I ever want to change them, I go in and change them there. And then I do a live preview. Oh, very important. I'm going to do a live preview. I want to show you what may happen. So if you'll notice when I'm doing the live preview, it shows the data, but you notice the styling's not there. Well, that's because each UX has to refer to that Bootstrap because it doesn't know where to find the Bootstrap thing. So I'm going to copy this here, and I'm going to go back to my new UX where I'm going to use it, and I have to put in my head section tag, go in here, and put it here. Now, I'm sure there's better ways to do it, but this just works, so I put it in there for the head section tags. But again, this is maybe why you want to download the CSS and associate with UX. But now let's do my live preview. And there we go. This must be something when I saved it originally. For some reason, adding it in there, I'm not sure why. It doesn't do it on my other badge. Like if I go into this one, let me see. Nah, that's the old one. So I'm not sure why this is showing up. This is something when I was pasting, I screwed up something earlier, but notice my webinar here, and it's webinar and 8. And I go, oh, you know what? I don't like those. I think that should be a 9. So I'll go in here and go in. Actually, let's make it a 7. Click OK. I go into my live preview because I keep hitting, I'm so used to live preview. And 7. Now, notice, and again, I apologize that it looks so annoying, but notice something very important now, is that if I wanted to add this button to any of my UXs now I don't have HTML, edit the HTML, etc. I'm going to have less defects because let's say in Fumble Fingers, I screw up a part of the HTML and it doesn't render. And what's cool is now I can say, you know what, I need another button on there. So actually, let's go to Badge Fun. I'm going to add the new one there. Go into Badge Fun 2, double clicked on it and say, I want this to be 10. And I want to say, hello. Okay. And then I do my live preview. And you're going to see on it, even though it has that stupid text, you see, I wonder, yeah, it must be, anyway, so you'll see hello and now there. Now, there's a few things I can do. I see, oh, you know what? I've got to add a little space after it. So I'll show you how to fix that in a moment. So notice now that I can have these on there. And the cool thing is I can say, oh, these are just like any other control. So I can put in a panel card or a panel layout. Panel card here. Actually, you know what? Let's make it more interesting. I'm going to make this panel navigator. And I want this to be a panel card. And this be a panel card. Okay, let's run this bad boy. There's my other one. So they're controls. And so I can move them around, I can change them. I don't have to worry about going and editing HTML or pasting in code or doing anything like that. So that is really, really cool. And that's where you get the really benefit is that once you do the work once, doing this, then I can use it over and over anywhere. I can actually move these to other projects. It all works fine from there. Now, you'll notice that I do have a defect. So this is the classic case of fix it once. So I'm going to go ahead and do the following. I'm going to go back into my development environment and that's really that UX where I'm developing this badge. And so the issue is when I'm running it, it doesn't have a space. So if I go here to JavaScript, I can just go in and say, oh, you know what? I want a couple spaces there. So I'm modifying this here, okay? So let's look at a live preview and see if it fixed the problem where it puts those little spaces. Yep, notice there's a little space after that now and the 5's not bunched up on there. So I've fixed it. So now when I want to redeploy this, all I have to do is go back into my badge. Then I go more, save as custom control. It's going to ask me this stuff here. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. Which one is it? Wait, I went to the wrong one. Sorry, let me close this. That's the, yes, I want to exit with us. Let me go back to here. This was the one where I was developing my custom control. Here, go here, and then I'm going to put in. So I'm going to put in a couple spaces before it puts out. Oh, and then I'm going to just make another couple spaces. Okay. Let's make sure that looks right. Okay, now it looks a little nicer. There's a little space between it. It's not all bunched up. So now I can go back in there and I'm ready to go ahead and do the save as custom control. There's my defaults. I'm going to leave them as they are. And now what I'm going to do is you'll see over here, I could start going through the process, but I don't want to do all that again. I just go here and I click the one I did before, badge fund. I think it's badge fund. You know what? And this should be restoring the icon, but let me go ahead and do that. That may be a defect in this version, so. But it will restore all the information that you've done before. And then when you click OK, it overwrites it, and now you're good to go. Now, very important, and this is one thing that I need to request, but if I run these again, you're going to see something is when you instantiate a custom control onto a UX, you'll notice it's still showing the same one here. So what you actually have to do is now recreate these, like go ahead and re-add it. So let me go ahead and go here and delete this one. And I'll go to my controls. I'll add badge fund. Okay. And I'll change that to okay, and then we'll do a live preview. And now what you're going to do is see that the one I just added, it re-instantiates and it has the nice feel there, but this other one has the old one. So that's the only thing that's kind of a little gotcha is that after you've, if you edit your custom control, if you've already instantiated one in a UX, it does there. I think what'd be cool would be to have some kind of like refresh function that you could just say refresh to it. But I think the team's just kind of waiting to see on that from that standpoint there. But as you can see, it's really easy. Now, whenever I want to, I now have this custom control. I can then put it on any of my UXs in my property. Now, I want to show you one last thing, which really makes this insanely powerful. So let's say I want to reuse this control. So if I go on here and I'll go into the save as custom controls, you're going to see that down here is a little button called manage. And if you click that, that actually opens up the UX with the folder. This is where it saves those custom controls. And if I go into badge fund, you'll see this is all here. So if I want to reuse this on another project, now, I'm sorry, let me take this back. So if I want to use it on another project, this is, you'll notice it's saved under the development environment. So if I create a new project, these custom controls are going to be available for that project. So if I'm on the same machine using the same, but let's say I want to give this to Joe, and Joe or Jane is doing some development, I can just copy this folder. They can then go open up this folder on their machine, paste it in, and good to go. And you'll notice something here. I actually, and this was when we did our project, that gets kind of old, meaning because I'm doing the development of, I did this development of the Zing charts, and I created the custom controls, and I didn't want to have to copy and paste these folders to the developer or the person working with it. So what we said is set up a Git repository, and I would check it in and he'd check it out on his development machine, and boom, he'd have all the latest custom controls without having to do copy and paste and other things there. So that's a little like inside baseball thing. But I just wanted to show you that if you want to put this on another machine, you just click Manage Controls. You go copy that folder. Then you go to the other machine. You click Manage Control, and you paste it in this some folder. And boom, now that custom control will be available for them to use in their project. So it's really straightforward and easy to use there. So I'm going to halt here. I know I dumped a lot on you, but I want to do a real quick recap. Step one is, and I'll walk through this really quickly just so I say the wrong thing here. Step one is I created a UX and created a HTML, a viewbox control, used the sample of template for user defined. Once I had that, I then went in here and I modified it by basically just modifying this JavaScript here. The other thing I did too, which is important, is that if I'm going to have different parameters, I added this static JSON that provides us what parameters we're going to use. Then once that was done and I was happy with it and everything looked good, I could now go to More, Save as Custom Control, set the defaults, and then fill this out, save it, and boom, it sort of wraps it up and puts it into my local system as a custom control. Now, when I create a UX, I just pick it up from the controls that are available and I'm good to go. Then if I want to share this with another machine, I can then go grab these folders, move them over to the other machine. Again, Git's a really nice thing because then you can keep, like I could make a bunch of changes, check it into Git, and then they would get an instant update. And again, the last caveat, and it kind of took me a little while to figure this here, is that once you've put it onto here, it's going to stay as it was when you put it on there. So if you want to redo it, you just basically re-add the control, set the parameters, and you're good to go from there. So that's a real kind of, I know that I packed a lot in there, but I wanted to kind of give a good feel for that. I knew I kind of threw the Bootstrap in there, but I also wanted to kind of show you how you can make really cool stuff. You could encapsulate it, drop them as custom controls, and then any of your projects, boom, they're good to go, and everything's rocking and rolling. So I'll with that, I will hand it over to and see if there's any questions or comments.
There are some questions. Actually, there's one huge question. It's the one everyone's been asking, and that is, dude, that's really cool, but how do I set the value? I mean, you've got it hard-coded right now. What's the technique you use? Like if you had a script, or I don't know, maybe you'd made an API call, somehow a value came back into this UX. How do I update the value there in my custom control?
Gotcha. Okay. So you can see there's on Git and on value of that. I really haven't used it much for a value setting kind of scenario. I trigger activities on it, but within, that's where you have to, in here on this, you can actually add your own JavaScript and other things called functions when this button is interacted with, etc. So yeah, that's kind of a, I've been using it mainly as a display technique so far. So that's kind of where I've been kind of saying, but I can see where you want to set that value.
Well, you want to set, for instance, like the number of notifications.
The badge thing there.
Right.
Yeah. What you could, let's see what's on there. No, that's when it's actually set or there. I'll have to get back to you. I mean, I really haven't used that. I know this probably wasn't a good example because of that, but
no, it's
by the way, it does have a value. Yeah. But that's the value of this control. It's not necessarily the value that it picks up in there. So I'll get back to you on that, on those pieces there. We can set things like items, which allows you to add your own JavaScript and other pieces here. Let me see here. Yeah, it's mainly function arguments. Let's see. There's actually arguments for this function too for my control. And I think you can pass in those arguments to set that
JavaScript that could say, hey, I'd like to update the value of that data so that it's no longer 9, it's now 10 or something like that.
Yeah, well, I think the way you would do it is you have these arguments you can add to here, and then I'd have to get back to you. That maybe is a version 2 of this demonstration.
That's
I know I mix metaphors here, but yeah. But yeah, I can see that where you're like, hey, I want to be able to call and say, instead of 10, now I want the badge on that button to be 3. How do I call that and do that?
We've got Sarah here. I think she's got some to add.
Yeah, so what
she'll
I
save
think
my
what
butt.
you're looking for, and I haven't tested this yet. Do you see at the very top there it says var value equals this dot value? I think you get that. I think value is a hard-coded property of that control. So to like your badge number field, if you changed it, I think you need to
Okay.
test it. I think you used this dot value instead. I
Do you
think
want to
that would
try
give
it? I
you
mean, it
the
may
hit
blow
you want.
doors.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. So let's go ahead,
Yeah.
instead of let's say value, let's just set it to be here. And I think you can expand on it with multiple values. So, okay. So I'm setting the badge to be that. Okay. So save that. Now, remember, I made this change here, so I'm going to go ahead and save it as a custom control. I think I could test it actually in here. Let's give that a try. Let's actually, before we do that, let's try and add another just button here on my test environment. Okay. And let's go ahead and add a little, we'll say dialog dot object dot VB, oh, I'm sorry, dot get set value. And I'll go ahead and say VB badge fun to 6. Okay. So basically I wrote a little set, it says take and set the value of that. So let's see what happens. I wonder if that activates when it works here. We'll see. Give it a try. Now it should come up with an O value on that. So it's probably going to be like the default. Okay. You are a genius. You are a
Thank you.
There's the
genius.
rescue once
You're
again.
welcome.
Yeah.
All right,
And
let's
so
go
what I would
back
probably
just
do,
in case
That's
someone
how you do
blew.
it.
Let's show the JavaScript behind setting that. How you set
should
it up.
I'll do this in slow
Excellent.
motion. Slow motion replay. So this is, so this was already in there. I didn't actually code this. I wish I had, but so what this does is basically when you set the value of a control, you do it through standard. Let me go back to that. Whenever you want to set the value of a control, yeah, I always hit the wrong thing. Okay. So you can use this little JavaScript that says set value to be there. And by the way, if you're in like an XBasic callback, you can say e_set dot VB badge fun dot value is equal to 6. That was like if I was doing callback, and that basically takes this and generates this JavaScript. So I'm not limited to doing in JavaScript. I can actually do that. In fact, I want to show you something pretty cool. I'll do that. So again, what we're doing is we're setting the value of this control to something. Now, this is simple, but this could be a lot of data. This could be a JSON string with multiple items. It doesn't have to be just one single piece of data. Now, what happens inside here is that when this runs, when I hit set that value, it runs this JavaScript and it says, oh, okay, that's that value. I'm going to put it into this, and then I can use it anywhere within my system here. So the beauty of that is that it basically takes care of handling the JavaScript, that when I set the value of that control, it's going to take care of going and running this script to basically pick up what that new value is, and then allowing me to reiterate and expose those pieces there. Cool. So that's how that, I don't know if I confuse things or if I actually all on how that works, but that's built into it. And it looks like there might be more than one value. But if I wanted to, this is a single value, but I could pass in some JSON as the value, and I could have 5 or 6 things that I'm setting to it. So the way that worked again is basically now that I've set this value here as part of my output, when I run this test script, it basically sets the value of that control. Oops, there it is, test, and then adds those pieces there. Now, to show you how this is kind of cool is that I'm going to go ahead and go into my server-side event on dialog, and I'm going to say e.control.VB badge fun. Okay, So when I do this, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now let's go, when I open it up, there it is, 11. And then when I do a change, I can go like that, 6.
Very nice.
And kind of cool, I'm going to get a little crazy. So everybody hold on here. I'm going to add a new button here. And just going to, and by the way, this could be a custom control button. I mean, it doesn't have to be, you can kind of mix and match the stuff. Test, call back. Okay, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to do an Ajax callback. So let's say I click on that to do something like process a bunch of stuff. So I'll call it test callback. And I'm going fast, but I don't want to waste your time. Okay, so when I click this button, it's going to run this xbasic function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go e dot, and I wish this was just e dot control, but for whatever reason, de dot underscore set dot bb, what is that?
Batch fun.
bb batch fun dot value is equal to 1. And so that's equivalent to e dot control. So you can see if we go down here, it shows you, it's e underscore set. Sorry, make sure I did that right. Yep. Okay. So now let me just run this real quick. So now I can set the value, and then the custom control will take care of doing the rest for me. So I could change this. Notice when I on dialog, I can do a little JavaScript, but now I'm going to do an Ajax callback, and notice that it called back, did something on the server, and then said, hey, update the value of this button. So that's all fun and good, but now this is in my test environment. So let's, if you'll bear with me, what I'd like to do is show you an example in the production environment. So now that I've got this there, I want to go ahead and go, and again, this is the only thing that's a little tricky. I go in here, I'm going to save it as a custom control. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and badge fun, get my CSS icon. Let's go here. Okay, let me insert that there. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and overwrite that. So now I've overwritten it with this new feature, new capabilities. Now I'm going to go back here. Nope, after I click. Okay, I'm going to go back here. Go ahead and delete this. I'm going to add my badge in here. Okay. Now remember, this is called badge fun 3. Okay, so it's here. So I'm going to go to my server side event. I'm going to go e.control.badge fun 3 is equal to 11. And let's see if that works there. That's the initial default values of the badge. There we go. Voila. Or I can say it's 12. Now notice I didn't have to rewrite any, I mean, once I redid the custom control, I just dropped it on, and now all those features are available and off to the races.
That's fantastic. Hey, Dan, we are out of time, but thank you very much.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry about all the questions, but that was a great one, and thank you for saving me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Dan, thank you very much for presenting.
Sarah, you complete me.
Oh, okay.
All right, enough of that, guys. Thanks, everyone who showed up today. If you do have further questions, of course, you can send them to guides, GUIDES, @alphasoftware.com. Until then, we hope to see you at our next Alpha Demo and Q&A webcast. Take care and stay well. Bye-bye.